Let's talk about autism, ADHD and PDA. Back to basics, all under 10 minutes. Buckle up. Hi, my name's Becky. I'm the proud founder of Awesome Watching Nonprofit, and we create content that is here to educate, advocate and support the neurodivergent community. We've only got under 10 minutes to talk about 3 of the most complex neurological differences. So let's go. Autism is a developmental neurological condition. It is hereditary. There's nothing you can do to stop it happening during pregnancy. There's nothing that you're doing that is causing it other than genetics. And generally, the autistic community will have differences with understanding social cues, interpreting non-verbal communication, let's say like body language, and forming and maintaining friendships. Obviously, all this information is very generalised. You've met one autistic person, that's one autistic person, but they have to be diagnosed through a criteria called the DSM-5. And so some of the points we're going to talk about today are covering those diagnosis criteria. Like my children, you'll see that they have potentially restricted and or repetitive behaviours and interests. So they may particularly love a repetitive movement like stimming, could be hand flapping, could be nail biting, could be pacing, could be bouncing, could be rocking back and forth, could be vocal stimming. Or they may have intense interest in specific subjects like geography. Can they name every single country in the world? Do they absolutely focus on Lego and you can't get them to do anything else in that moment? Do they line everything up in a certain order or colour coordinate things? Or are they particularly good at puzzles? And often an autistic person will prefer routine and predictability. They're going to be showing signs of sensory differences, whether they seem hypersensitive or less reactive than you'd imagine. You know, this is important to say that this is just normal for them. You don't want to say that they're kind of oversensitive or undersensitive because you don't want to other them. This is just them. But the easiest way to describe it is in an average room of people, would you say that that child is perhaps more sensitive or that term or over dramatic? You know, not over dramatic. They're reacting strongly to something that really matters to them. You might perceive it as a bit of a over dramatization, but to them it isn't. It's just the way they are. They're going to have different learning styles. They may appear to pay attention and learn in a different way to the majority of the class, let's say. And if your child is autistic, whether they have a diagnosis or not, they're going to experience a lot of meltdowns. They're going to have real strong emotional outbursts, let's say to, you know, it's time to go home, or they've ice cream dropped on the floor. You know, all children are going to be upset, of course they are. But if you have an autistic child, that's going to really, really hit them probably. Also, you might find that they become overwhelmed in certain situations, and that may mean that they shut down and lose a little bit of their beautiful, quirky personality. Or it might be that they become almost hyperactive just to try and manage all those feelings. Autism is a spectrum. There are no two people the same. So you really must stop looking at this autistic person and that autistic person and going, oh yeah, well, mine's not like that, so it can't be autism. That's just simply not true. Autism is extremely complex to actually diagnose, and it takes a real experienced and highly qualified professional. But it's your responsibility as a parent, as a carer, as a school worker to look at those things that are a familiar sight or are fitting into certain characters, particularly those in the DSM-5, and go, oh yeah, okay, that would make sense for an autism diagnosis. And please remember, if you are a family member or a friend and you've got a family member who's coming to you and saying, you know, our daughter, we're looking at, you know, the fact that she may be autistic. Please don't be one of those people that says, oh, they're fine, they'll grow out of it. Oh, for goodness sakes. The brain type is the brain type. You are what you are. You've just got to accept it and go with it. ADHD. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit and Hyperactivity Disorder. I don't particularly like that. In our house, we just say it's a difference. And it's really important to state at this point that ADHD is so vastly different in everybody, but it's particularly different in girls and boys. And this is not me being sexist. Actually, so often science is showing us, and statistics are showing us, and research is showing us, that the ADHD side in a lot of girls, a lot of women, is hyperactivity in the mind. It's an overwhelming inability to control your thoughts, to control your worry. You almost procrastinate so much because you can't even begin to get started on a task. For some people, the hyperactivity might mean that they have difficulty in sitting still. They may have excessive movements, fidgeting, restlessness. It could be that they're incredibly impulsive. They act without thinking, like me. They interrupt other people. I do that all the time, and I don't mean to. Particularly our younger ADHDers, they're going to have a bit of difficulty with waiting their turn, and they can be known for making very hasty decisions. But again, if you are hyperactive in the mind, it can be the complete opposite, and it may mean that a simple decision for most people can be completely debilitating for you. And so a decision that may take someone an hour could take you a year because you're procrastinating, you're worried about making the wrong decision. Oh, no. ADHD. In one way or another, it's going to impact your academic life and your work life. It's important to say at this point that so many of us, when we have ADHD children, we are only focused on what is happening in mainstream school, and we forget that an ADHD is an ADHD for life. I still struggle as an adult. Where lots of ADHD people will say that they haven't had a drink all day or they've not eaten, and they say it's because they've forgotten. They're so busy doing other things that it just doesn't come into their mind. We can have real difficulty managing our anger, managing our frustration, and we can very easily be overwhelmed and full of anxiety, particularly as adults. Now let's talk about PDA. PDA officially stands for pathological demand avoidance. That's not what we call it in our house. In fact, we use the terminology pathological demand / anxiety. And the reason we change that is because we're trying to make people understand that our son doesn't avoid demands because he can't be bothered and it's a choice. Any demand that's placed upon him, even the demands that he places upon himself, put him into fight or flight. For him, it's an anxiety-driven thing. It controls everything about him. There's an overwhelming need to avoid everyday demands, often due to heightened anxiety, like we talked about. People with PDA will often use a load of social strategies to elude demands. This may include distracting people, endlessly negotiating, procrastination, or flattery. On the surface, compared to a lot of autistic people, they may seem very sociable, and this is often because they are incredibly adept at masking. It's common for them to have rapid mood changes and impulsivity, and this can swing from compliance to intense avoidance within a millisecond. One of the ways a PDAer will escape reality is to ease into role play and pretending. This might be in physical play as when they're a child. So if you see that they're playing a lot and immersing themselves into a different world, it could be because they just need to zone out of this one for a minute. But as an adult, it could be spending a lot of time in your own imagination and living in your own kind of imaginative world just to try and escape the realities of where you are today. And as we find in our house, a total intolerance for uncertainty. And for me, having 2 ADHD children, but only one with a PDA profile, I would say that our PDA child struggles way more with uncertainty than Awesome Archie does, which does surprise a lot of people because to an outside perspective, you may assume that he is more appearing sociable and more able to manage in a mainstream community. Actually, we would say probably the opposite. PDA is a thing. We always say if you were unfortunate and you had a mole that was cancerous and you didn't go to the doctor, just because you don't know the mole is cancerous, you haven't had a diagnosis, doesn't mean it isn't. It's precisely the same. A PDA profile is a real thing. And if you live with a PDA child, you will know this. It's often important to say that in adulthood, a lot of PDAs have been previously misdiagnosed with other things like extreme anxiety, borderline personality disorder. It goes on. So we hope that this very short, very brief, very clipped, back to basics content has helped you. If it has, do just give us a Google. We're Awesome Archie. Come and join us on our website. We'd love you to follow us on all of our socials. We try to post content every single day, most of which educational, all of which advocating, and some of which just a bit silly. Do come join us.